Hello everyone. Welcome to my YNR 24 spoilers. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Phyllis's kiss with Cain pushes Lily to her breaking point. The Young and the Restless recap, November 14th. Phyllis's kiss with Cain pushes Lily to her breaking point. www.soapcentral.com 11-minute read. On the Friday, November 14th, episode of The Young and the Restless, Noah seemingly goes missing after a confrontation with Mitch. Nate and Victoria grew closer, and Phyllis and Cain's kiss led to an emotional breaking point for him and Lily. What happened on The Young and the Restless? Phyllis and Cain kiss on The Young and the Restless. Sharon returned to the hospital and was surprised Nick wasn't in Noah's hospital room. They recall how angry Noah had been the night before and that his rage led to them being kicked out of his room. Nick didn't think Noah pushing them away would change anything. They were adamant that Mitch was really Matt and they needed to keep their son safe. Sharon needed Noah to understand the level of danger that Matt possessed, and she hoped he had time to cool down. Nick and Sharon jointly entered Noah's room and were stunned to find the bed completely stripped and vacated. The nurse explained that Noah checked himself out of the hospital earlier that morning. Nick tried to call him, but he was at the shadow room and was immediately approached by Mitch. Noah ignored the call and asked Mitch if he thought he looked bad from his injuries. He explained to Mitch that he should have called first, but Noah just popped in to say hello. Mitch noticed Noah was pale and assumed that Nick and Sharon had shared their theory with him about him being the presumed dead Matt Clark. Noah admitted it was quite the accusation, but he denied their assertions. Noah agreed that Nick and Sharon sometimes jumped to conclusions and overreacted, but to think Mitch was an entirely different person was strange. He didn't think they'd do that unless Mitch was hiding a significant secret. Mitch reminded Noah of their friendship and used that as the reasoning for why he'd been mostly patient with his parents' baseless accusations. Noah thought that if Nick and Sharon were so certain of Mitch's true identity, they must not be lying. When Noah brought up Matt and Sharon's past, Mitch again brought up their friendship and how he was a champion for Noah's success. Mitch asked Noah to think back to their entire relationship and remember if he had done anything to make him believe he was out for revenge. Noah confessed that he hadn't, and he said as much to Nick and Sharon. Mitch wondered why Noah repaid his goodwill and support by sleeping with his wife. Noah downplayed his relationship with Sienna, vowing that it was purely platonic. However, Mitch knew there was more to it. Noah questioned where Mitch's paranoia was coming from, but Mitch explained that Sienna had called him after the accident. He knew Noah was disappointed to see him at the shadow room without Sienna anywhere to be found. Noah tried to bring up their previous plans to open a club, but Mitch told him to grow up. He wouldn't listen to any denials from Noah, and he discussed how Nick and Sharon had berated him. They believed that Mitch was really Matt and his life was a lie. Mitch flipped it on Noah and said he was the liar, and he demanded answers about the affair, wanting every detail about how it went down. Mitch asked if Noah ever slept with Sienna in his marital bed, and he proclaimed that he felt betrayed by both of them. He said, "After everything that I've done for you, you had the audacity to try and take what's mine." Noah concocted a story about how he and Sienna were nothing more than friends, but Mitch called him a lying cheat. He felt betrayed by his friend, and he accused Noah of disrespecting his boundaries. Noah apologized for making Mitch feel differently, but when Noah tried to leave, Detective Burrow stopped him. He was glad they ran into each other, and he had questions for Noah about the accident that nearly claimed his life. Burrow ordered Noah to come with him to take a drive past the car accident, hoping it would jog his memory. Noah was apprehensive, but the detective made it clear that it wasn't a request. Back at the hospital, Nick and Sharon worried about Noah's apparent hospital exit, but the nurse filled in some of the blanks. She explained that Noah was an adult, so they weren't required to be notified, and he signed himself out of the hospital against medical advice. When Nick inquired about the status of the security guard, the nurse revealed that Noah ordered him to leave his post. They apologized for being too aggressive with the nurse and asked her for any updates about where Noah might have gone. Nick and Sharon were beside themselves because Noah could have taken off anywhere. They assumed he was at the shadow room, so they left to stop Noah from dealing with Matt on his own. They quickly arrived, but there was no sign of their son. Instead, Matt was there to greet them, and he told them to leave his establishment. Matt pretended not to know about Noah leaving the hospital, and Sharon fired an attitude at her former attacker. Nick proposed that Sienna might have an idea of Noah's location. They refused to leave until they were given some answers, but Matt was sick of dealing with them or Noah. Matt wanted to know what Noah divulged about his relationship with Sienna. However, Nick threatened to force the information out of him if he didn't start talking. Matt didn't know where Sienna was or how she could help with the situation. Nick warned him that if he did anything to Noah, he was a dead man. Nate and Lily took a break from work for a hot chocolate in Chancellor Park. Although Devin didn't join them, he told Nate that Kane's AI program was stolen from him. Nate was pleased at the latest development in Kane's life, but Lily didn't appear as enthused. He realized she already knew about the theft of the program and assumed that Kane was seeking revenge. Lily thought Kane seemed stunned and lost without the empire he was so proud of. She knew it rattled him despite his cool exterior. Lily caught glimpses of the man she had previously been in love with. Kane, having lost the power he used against everyone, slowly regained his former self. However, Nate questioned if she felt bad for him. She didn't think it was bad to have sympathy for what he was going through. Lily denied that her newfound sympathy for Kane meant anything more than that. However, Nate thought it was quite a leap from her previous attitude. She recognized that as the father of her children, she owed him a bit of leeway. Nate countered, wondering if Kane was able to revive the man he used to be before the Aristotle Dumas persona consumed him. Lily knew Kane wanted her to believe that he was capable of returning to his former self. Nate asked if she believed it, but she didn't know. He thought Kane could be running another game and just telling her what she wanted to hear. Nate thought that everything Kane brought back into their lives was chaos, including the death of his brother. Nate knew that it was difficult to let go of strong feelings for someone he had loved in the past. She brought up his past for Audra, but he declined the comparison. He was ready to move on from her because she would never change into the person he wanted her to be. Nate thought Lily had moved on from Kane, but she couldn't get Amy's words out of her head. Forgiveness for Kane wasn't just a gift for Kane. It would free her and the twins from the hospitality that was holding on to them. After Lily left the park, Nate bumped into Victoria, who had returned from Los Angeles. They were elated to see each other, and like he and Lily, she was after the hot chocolate. She asked if he would join her for one, despite already indulging, hinting at the two growing closer. Victoria told him about Noah's prognosis, and he was so relieved to hear about the latest updates. Nate asked if she had run into Claire while she was there, and if the topic of Holden had come up. Victoria admitted it was briefly discussed, and Claire needed that to realize what she did and didn't want out of her life. Phyllis asked Kane if he routinely assumed women were trying to seduce him. He recognized that she was a driven woman who did whatever it took to get what she wanted. Kane worried he was misreading the signals, and for argument's sake, Phyllis said if he wasn't wrong, what did he think of it? Kane admitted the thought of Phyllis being into him flattered and intrigued him. Phyllis pondered the possibility of their relationship if they further explored their growing attraction. He reminded her that he was still in love with his ex-wife. Phyllis realized he wouldn't give up on Lily, and all roads constantly led back to her. Kane wasn't give up on his dream of reuniting his family. She tried to get him to realize how nothing would ever be enough, and that Lily couldn't accept the person he'd become. Kane wondered if Phyllis had someone who had gotten away, like he had with Lily. He told her, Lily, for me, in my life, isn't ever going to be someone that I'm going to give up trying to get back. Phyllis joked that Kane should write poetry with his philosophical orations. She believed he was setting himself up to be disappointed by Lily. Still, he wasn't ready to give up the fight. Phyllis admitted that she knew what it was like to love someone and have them not reciprocate the feelings. She alluded to giving up her love for Danny and finding inner peace that they'd never be together. Kane admitted that he'd consider Phyllis's words. He asked her to return to her attempted seduction, and she accused him of being too analytical. Phyllis brought up Kane, using Lily as a defense mechanism to prevent him from giving in to the temptation. As Phyllis planted a kiss on Kane and reminded him that she'd never ask him to change, Lily walked in and saw everything. She approached Kane at his seat and asked, "Do I even want to know what the hell that was about?" Kane promised it was just a game of Phyllis's, and he asked if it bothered her. He assured her that he was working an angle, and nothing was going on between the pair. Kane confessed that his Dumas era was over, and the only thing that remained was the man Lily loved all of those years ago. He asked Lily to stay and join him at society. Lily didn't understand Kane's thought processes, and although his feelings had remained unchanged, hers had not. She admitted she had seen flashes of who he used to be, but the pain was still there. Kane asked if there was anything that he could do that she wouldn't criticize, and wondered if he'd ever been good enough for her standards. Lily told him not to spin it against her, but he thought she was the one who spun everything he said. He asked if she was done and if he should cut his losses. Kane thought they could have reclaimed what they previously shared, and not only had he changed, so had she. Ultimately, Kane returned to the GCAC and told Phyllis that she was right about everything. He wanted to cut ties with the past and focus on a new future. Victor attacks Arabesque, Mitch confronts Noah, and Phyllis kisses Kane. Here is your weekly recap of The Young and the Restless for the episodes that aired November 10th through 14th, 2025. What happened on The Young and the Restless? The Young and the Restless. Lily sees Kane and Phyllis. Image, CBS. This week on The Young and the Restless, Nick caught Noah and Sienna kissing at the hospital. Sienna claimed that Mitch knew nothing about their affair. Mitch paid Detective Burrow to get rid of the guard outside Noah's hospital room. Mitch continued to deny that he was really Matt Clark and warned Sienna not to go to the cops. Nick and Sharon told Noah about their past with Matt and their suspicions about Mitch. Noah checked himself out of the hospital and went to the shadow room, where Mitch confronted him about sleeping with Sienna. Burrow forced Noah to return to the accident scene. A frantic Nick and Sharon tried to find Noah, but Mitch denied having seen him. Victor used Kane's AI program to attack Arabesque. Kane's team worked to find the kill switch before the program decimated the company. Phyllis objected to Victor using the software against Kane, but Victor stressed that he and Phyllis weren't partners. Lily confided to Nate that she wasn't sure she'd moved on from Kane. Kane and Phyllis discussed their mutual attraction, but he informed her that he was still in love with Lily and not ready to give up. Lily walked in as Phyllis planted a kiss on Kane. After another lecture from Lily, Kane sought out Phyllis to let go of the past and look to the future. Adam balked at helping Victor destroy Jack, and he suggested they convince Abbott Communications' secret investor to pull their funding to humiliate Billy. Sally was dismayed when Jill opposed hiring Audra, but she assured Audra that it would eventually happen. Sally discovered that Billy had stopped drinking to help get his life together. Audra lashed out at Holden when she learned he took Claire to the shadow room, but Holden explained that he'd only told Claire part of the story to keep her from digging further. Danny and Christine planned a simple wedding. After being rejected by Mariah again, a devastated Tessa contemplated filing for divorce. Daniel asked Tessa to be his date to Danny and Christine's wedding. Victoria and Nate planned a dinner date. In the emotionally charged tapestry of The Young and the Restless November 14th episode, the collision of past wounds, simmering tensions, and unresolved desires created an explosive turning point. None more impactful than the moment Phyllis kissed Kane, shattering Lily's fragile equilibrium and reviving years of buried pain. The day began with turmoil elsewhere in Genoa City, but its emotional epicenter inevitably drifted toward Cain Ashby and Lily Winters, whose history remains a precariously balanced mixture of love, betrayal, grief, and longing. While the canvas of the episode was painted with Noah's disappearance, Mitch's rising paranoia, Victor's machinations with Cain's stolen AI program, and Nate and Victoria's deepening connection, the emotional gravity belonged to the storyline that thrust Cain and Lily into yet another crossroads. Lily had spent the earlier part of the day fighting an internal storm after her conversation with Nate, in which she wrestled with her unexpectedly rekindled empathy toward Cain. Despite everything he had done, his lies, his arrogance under the Aristotle Dumas persona, and the devastation that had rippled through their family, she found herself remembering the man he used to be, the man she once trusted with her heart and her future. Nate, ever the realist, pushed her to acknowledge that Cain had long blurred the line between charm and manipulation. Yet Lily could not shake Amy's words. That forgiveness was not merely a gift to Cain, but a release for herself and their children, a way to finally unburden themselves from the emotional baggage they had carried far too long. Her conflict simmered beneath the surface as she tried to make sense of what she still felt and what she feared to feel again. Meanwhile, Cain struggled under a different kind of weight. With Victor exploiting his stolen AI technology to attack Arabesque, Cain found himself stripped of the empire he had meticulously built, left only with the raw and vulnerable remnants of the man he once was. That loss disarmed him, peeling away layers of ego and bravado until only honest longing remained. Longing for his family, his former identity, and most of all, Lily. Enter Phyllis, a woman whose sharp edges, relentless ambition, and loneliness mirrored Cain's own fractured state. Their conversations crackled with tension, a push and pull between flirtation and philosophical probing. Phyllis admired his passion and mocked his rigidity in the same breath. She saw the ache in him and, perhaps more importantly, recognized it. As they traded barbs about seduction, regret, and the ghosts of lovers past, their banter became a strange mix of introspection and temptation. Cain repeatedly insisted that despite their chemistry, his heart belonged to Lily, and Phyllis, no stranger to the cruelty of unreciprocated love, pushed him to question why he continued clinging to a dream that seemed determined to collapse. She warned him that Lily could no longer accept the man he had become, no matter how desperately he reached for the version of himself she once adored. But Cain was not ready to surrender. Not then. The pivotal moment unfolded when Phyllis, emboldened by a mix of mischief, curiosity, and her own aching loneliness, pressed her lips to Cain's in a kiss meant not only to tempt him, but to challenge him, challenge his claims of loyalty, his certainty about Lily, and perhaps even his assumptions about himself. It was a kiss loaded with provocation, emotional displacement, and a hint of genuine attraction. And it was at that exact moment that Lily walked in. The timing, cruel, ironic, or fated, was devastating. Lily froze, staring at Cain and Phyllis with a hollow mixture of shock, heartbreak, and exhaustion. Cain jumped to explain that it was nothing more than a game, an angle he was working, a meaningless stunt. Still, Lily could not ignore what she had seen. It wasn't just the kiss, but the intimacy of their conversation, the vulnerability in Cain's voice, and the galling familiarity between them. Cain, desperate to regain ground, insisted that he had changed back into the man she once loved, the man beneath the Dumas persona. He invited her to stay, to talk, to try. But Lily could feel the old wounds reopening, wounds patched over but never fully healed. She admitted that while she could at times glimpse the man he used to be, the pain he had inflicted was still carved too deeply into her. Cain demanded to know whether anything he did would ever be enough for her, whether she would always judge him against impossible standards. The argument spiraled, reviving years of resentment and unresolved issues. Lily, overwhelmed, recognized that their dynamic had become a cycle. Each time they inched toward reconciliation, something shattered the illusion. And this time, the shattering happened right in front of her eyes. The kiss with Phyllis, meaningless or not, became a symbolic final blow. It confirmed to Lily that Kane's world was still chaotic, still unstable, and still consuming everything around him, including her peace. And just like that, the emotional thread connecting them frayed beyond repair. Kane, left reeling, returned to Phyllis later, now defeated and strangely liberated. He admitted she had been right all along. He needed to sever himself from the past and stop chasing a dream of restoring a version of his life that no longer existed. In that moment, something inside him shifted from desperation to acceptance, from longing to resolve. And Phyllis, watching him unravel and rebuild simultaneously, seemed to understand him more deeply than Lily could in that moment. Thus, Phyllis's kiss was not about romance. It was a catalyst, a spark that illuminated the truth Kane and Lily had been dancing around for months. It pushed Lily to her breaking point, forcing her to acknowledge that love alone could not repair what had been broken. And for Kane, it became the moment he finally stepped away from the shadow of who he used to be, ready or not, and toward an uncertain future, a future no longer defined by Lily's forgiveness, but by his own capacity to move forward.